Hey guys, hope you're staying safe and doing well. So our next system is the digestive system. So today we're going to go over the parts and the functions of them. So the first part is going to be the mouth. So this is where digestion is actually going to start. So there's four major components: the teeth, saliva, cheeks, and tongue, and all of these are going to work together to start to break down the food. So we'll go over teeth and saliva in a little bit more detail, and the tongue we'll mention again. So this is for honors only, so CP and academic, you can skip this portion. So there are five major parts to a tooth. So the outermost portion, or the hard outer shell, is going to be called the enamel. Right below that is going to be what's called dentine. So this is a little bit softer and sensitive. Then innermost layer is going to be the pulp. So this is going to be where you find the blood and nerve vessels. So these are going to deliver the nutrients and supply that the tooth needs. And then the last part is going to be cementum. So cementum is going to hold the tooth in place and make sure to keep the roots safe. So now we're going to watch a video that goes over the type of teeth and their function. All right, so the next part is going to be saliva. So this is very essential for the digestion process in the mouth. So saliva has a specific enzyme in it called amylase, which is extremely important because enzymes help to speed up a reaction. So this inside of the saliva is going to help to break down the food faster. So there's a few salivary glands. You don't have to know their exact location except for the honors class. You will need to know this. It'll be on the next slide. So as I said, honors, you do need to know this. So the first one is the parotid gland. This one is going to be the one that is located near your ear. The sublingual gland is going to be right below the tongue. And the submandibular gland is going to be right in between the two, so it's slightly lower behind the sublingual gland. The tongue is the next most important part, so this is covered with papillae. So if you remember, these are your taste receptors or your taste buds. So the tongue is connected to the hyoid bone in the back. If you remember, that's the free-floating bone in your throat, and then that's going to be held down in the front by what's called the frenum. So this is a small tissue that's going to hold your tongue down. So I don't remember if I told some of my classes before, but I've been told by the doctor before that they're surprised I don't have a really bad speech impediment because I have an extremely short frenum. So it's really hard for me to pronunciate certain words, or you hear me stumbling a lot because my tongue cannot help me pronounce things better, which is interesting. But one of the most important things about the tongue is helping for chewing and swallowing our food. So how do we actually taste food? So hopefully you remember this from the nervous system. So can you taste certain senses in certain areas? Like sweet is one area, sour is one area, salty is one area, bitter is one area. Hopefully you're shouting, no, because you learned this before. So no, all of your taste buds are tasting everything at the same time. So if you're tasting something sweet, you're tasting that C6H12O6 or your sugar. If you're tasting something sour, that's going to be the molecules that are making you taste sour. The same thing for salty, the same thing for bitter. So those are going to be sent down your taste receptors, down the neurons to your brain to be interpreted, and they say, hey, you're tasting something sweet, hey, you're tasting something sour, etc. So next, after the mouth has begun to digest the food, it's going to travel down the esophagus. The esophagus has peristalsis. These are muscular contractions that are going to help to force the food down. So I know I had somebody ask me before about, like, yeah, gravity brings the food down, but what's going to help bring it down if you're upside down? So peristalsis. So technically, if you are upside down, you can still swallow down, or up in this case, I guess, because of peristalsis. So it's still going to go to your stomach no matter what your orientation is. And a really cool fact is that it only takes 6 seconds for the food to go from your mouth to your stomach. So it's extremely fast. So next we're going to land in the stomach. So this is where the major digestion is going to take place, or the breakdown of your food. So this, you have what's called hydrochloric acid. It's extremely powerful for breaking down food. It's extremely acidic. And we also have powerful enzymes. So as we said before, enzymes speed up a reaction. So it's going to help to break down the food faster. So even though it's a fast process, it takes about 4.5 hours for this to fully occur. But it also depends on the food. It could be longer, it could be shorter. It really depends on what you are eating. And also if you are sick, like with a stomach bug, this is going to go way faster than it should. So yet again, honors only. So there are 2 sphincters located around the stomach to help prevent things from going back up into the throat and to help things from progressing before it is fully digested or broken down. So the first one that keeps it from going back into the esophagus is the esophageal sphincter, which makes sense. Esophagus, esophageal, same thing. And then the one that is going to stop the food from progressing until it is ready is the pyloric sphincter. So it's not going to open until the food is fully digested. So looking at what we've gone over so far, so we have the oral cavity, or our mouth is where the food is going to enter. If you remember from the respiratory system, the mouth and nose are connected by the pharynx, which is good and bad in sense. So for example, if you have a liquid in your mouth and you start laughing, it will come out your nose because they are connected. So once you swallow, if you remember, the epiglottis is going to keep things from going into the trachea, so it should flow down the esophagus. Then the esophagus is going to lead to the stomach. The stomach will digest for approximately 4.5 hours. Then it is going to travel to the small intestines. The first part is called the duodenum. So as I said, the next part is the small intestines. It is made up of 3 different segments. The first one is duodenum, second one jejunum, and the third one is ileum. So the total of the 3 is going to be about 22 feet long. So to help you imagine this, if you remember what my room looks like, starting from my desk, it's going to be all the way to the back row is approximately how long your small intestines are. So in the small intestines, there's going to be enzymes that are released from the pancreas and the liver, which we'll talk about a little bit more in detail in a couple slides. If you remember from the esophagus, there is peristalsis going on there. There's also peristalsis going on in the small intestines. So peristalsis is going to force the food to travel down the small intestines. The duodenum of the small intestines is going to continue to break down. So it's going to squish and squeeze the food down. The jejunum and the ileum are going to be absorbing. So this is where nutrients are going to be absorbed These processes take about 4 hours to complete. So a little bit less time than the stomach, but still significantly long period of time. So how does the absorption actually occur? So academic, you guys can skip this part. Honor CP, you do need to know this. So once the food is broken down from the hydrochloric acid and the enzymes, the food is broken down into its monomers. So for example, if you're eating some pasta, it's going to be broken down into its carbs. So things like glucose, lactose, fructose, etc. If you're having a steak, those proteins are broken down into the amino acids. If you have anything with triglycerides, it's broken down into fats, glycerol, etc. And nucleic acids are broken down into phosphates, sugars, etc. So everything is broken down into their monomers so that now they can be absorbed by the small intestines. So along the small intestines in the jejunum and the ileum are these projections called villi. So it's going to be like hair-like projections on all of the cells or the simple columnar epithelial tissue that you can find in the small intestines. Inside of these, there's actually capillaries. So there's going to be the exchange of nutrients with the cardiovascular system. So it's going to be a very similar process to the respiratory system where oxygen is absorbed. Instead of oxygen, now we're absorbing these nutrients like glucose, amino acids, fatty acids, etc. And these are going to go into your bloodstream and then spread throughout your body for you to utilize. So we just went over small intestines, so now we're moving on to the large intestines or the colon. So before we start that, I'm going to go over the different parts associated with the digestive system that are releasing enzymes, bile, etc. So the first one is going to be the pancreas. So the pancreas, as we said, releases enzymes. So enzymes increase the breakdown. So these enzymes are specifically helping to break down proteins, fats, and carbs so that they can become their monomers. So it's extremely important that the duodenum is doing its work so that in the jejunum and the ileum it can absorb these broken down amino acids, fatty acids, etc. The pancreas also makes insulin and directly puts that into the bloodstream, so it's going to help metabolize sugar. And so you can see where it is located inside the body, so it's going to be slightly behind the stomach and located where the intestines are as well. The liver is the next part that's helping to assist with digestion. So one of the major parts is bile. So bile is made up of a bunch of things. So salt, cholesterol, water, electrolytes, etc. And this is going to be secreted into the small intestines. So this specifically helps to digest fat. So fat is extremely hard to break down, so we need multiple things to help break it down. The liver is also called a chemical factory because it is going to take away any chemicals from the body that are hard to metabolize. So if there are any drugs or harmful chemicals, the liver is going to help take it away from the small intestines to try to break it down or detoxify. Sometimes it becomes overloaded and the liver cannot detoxify, which becomes extremely harmful to people. And there you go, so you can see where the liver is located. The gallbladder, so this is attached to the liver, it's right below it. This is going to store the bile and concentrate it so that it can easily break down the fats. It's then released into the duodenum, as we said, to digest fat. So here you can see where it is located. All right, so finally onto the large intestine or the colon. So the large intestine is much shorter than the small intestines, but it is larger in size. So it's only 6 foot, but it is much thicker. So the large intestines is made up of a few different parts to it. So the first part is going to be the cecum. So this is where it is connecting to the small intestines, or the ileum, the last part. So next we're going to go to the ascending colon. So on this picture, it is going to be the left side. So ascending means going up. So this is where, yet again, we're going to have that peristalsis helping us to bring that food up, or the digested food. Next, it is going to go across the transverse colon. So it's going to travel from left to right in this picture. In your body, it would be the opposite. Then it is going to descend, so go down, so descending colon. And then the last part is of the colon is the sigmoid, so this is where it creates almost like this S shape at the end of the large intestines. So here is where the majority of the time of digestion is spent. So it's about 10 to 15 hours for it to travel through the large intestines. The main function here is to help remove waste and also to absorb water. So next, it will go to the rectum. So here's a picture so that you can see of the large intestine, or the colon. You may have seen this on the last picture. So there's this little tiny part off of the large intestines. This is your appendix. So this is attached to the cecum, or the first part of the large intestine. It's not entirely sure what the function of the appendix was. They may have been used to help with digestion. So they said it may have been to help like digest rocks, things like that, like how birds have a gizzard to help them digest things like that or store them. They also thought it may have been an immune system thing, so maybe mature white blood cells and antibodies are being created here to help prevent infections. They're not entirely sure, so it's kind of up in the air. But one cool thing about the appendix is that if any part it gets damaged, you can actually clip this off and reuse it for reconstruction surgery. So you can replace this tissue somewhere else if there's a portion that's damaged. So next we have the rectum. So this is going to be an 8-inch chamber that connects the large intestines to the anus, or the end. So really cool thing about the rectum is that it can actually detect whether something is a solid or a liquid or a gas. So for example, if it is only gas that is taking place, it will send a signal from the nerve endings there to the brain saying, hey, it's just gas. And then it will send a signal back down to you, it's okay to release this. If it is something that is solid or liquid, it will send a signal up to the brain, alert, alert, you need to go to the bathroom. Like, this is not good, do not release it. So it's really an interesting function that we have. If we didn't have it, that wouldn't be good. So there are sphincters that are going to relax and contract depending on what is needed to do, release contents, etc. So the last part is going to be the anus. So this is a very short chamber. So this is just where everything is being released. But the same thing as the rectum, it has those same signals saying, hey, this is only gas. Hey, this is not. And whether you can release or not. So it's kind of like a backup. So you have your rectum and then you have your anus, both doing the same function, so that if one malfunctions, the other one can hopefully catch the mistake. Sphincters in here as well that are going to hold back until you are ready to go to the bathroom. So luckily we are able to hold this, or we at least are taught to, or force ourselves to be able to hold this so that we can make it to the bathroom. Babies, they do not have this function yet. They didn't learn it yet, so they just go when they go. So the entire process of digestion takes about 36 hours to complete. So anything you ate today, you probably won't see until tomorrow, maybe even the next day. So it takes a few days sometimes for you to digest and release those contents. All right, so hopefully now you're ready to label all of the parts. I'm going to draw up a quick sketch and then I'll label it together with you. So you guys can either draw a picture or use a diagram that is already labeled for you, you will need to know how to label a diagram like this on your test. So the first part of the digestive system is going to be the mouth, or also known as the oral cavity. So if you remember, this is where we have our saliva, our amylase, teeth, cheeks, tongue, all working together to break down the food before it travels down the esophagus. So anatomy-wise, the esophagus is posterior to the trachea, just so you know. The next part is going to be the liver. So this is where bile is created. Then we have the stomach. So this is where major digestion takes place, hydrochloric acid. Then we have our gallbladder. So this is where we store the bile. Then hidden behind the stomach is the pancreas. So this is where insulin is made, and as well as enzymes. Then we have the small intestines. So we have 3 different parts. So we have the first part is going to be the duodenum. Then we have jejunum. And then last we have ileum. So those are going to be the 3 components of the intestines. So if you remember duodenum, we have further digestion. That's where the enzymes are released. Jejunum and the ileum is going to be the absorption portion. So we're going to take in all those nutrients. So this is going to lead to the large intestines. So the first part is going to be the cecum, where the appendix is attached. Then we're going to travel up the ascending colon. Then travel across, so the transverse colon. Travel down, so down, think descending, so the descending colon. And then at this point, it's going to make an S shape where it's going to lead to the rectum. So this is going to be called sigmoid. So think it begins with an S, sigmoid, S shape. Might help you. Then we have next the rectum. So this is going to stop any waste from leaving. And then last we have the anus, where everything is going to be released. So one thing that I did not bring up that I wanted to was that once food leaves the stomach, it is called chyme. So as we eat, it goes from the mouth, down the esophagus, into the stomach, down into the small intestines. So we just went through the duodenum, jejunum. Now we're leading into the ileum. Now we're heading into the cecum, where the appendix is ascending, transverse, descending, sigmoid, rectum, anus. Done.